It may not just be one of the 10 greatest British films of all time, but one of the 10 greatest horror films of all time. No, maybe one of the 10 greatest films of all time. Before you throw a hissy fit about why it's not, I've seen and championed all of the films you would list over The Wicker Man. No, I have. Try me. And I still think Wicker Man is, if nothing else, worthy of a top 10 films list. And I mean no disrespect to Robin Hardy, the fact that he never really directed another film after this is a tragedy, and the fact that this was his debut is incredibly annoying in my own view, although a part of me, most of me, prefers the theatrical cut of the film, for three reasons. One, it was the version that I saw first. Two, the film beginning with Howie arriving on the island, the whole film taking place on Summer Isle, gives the film a highly immersive atmosphere, which scenes taking place off the island can partly affect and ever so slightly diminish. And three, Chris Lee's introduction, Lord Summerisle's appearing for the first time from behind that chair, that's one of the great character introductions of all time. And us meeting him at the same time Howie does, rather than us being teased with information which Howie is not privy to, lessens the atmosphere just a little. It is for these three reasons why I might claim to prefer the original theatrical cut, although all of the added footage is rather good in of itself, and I do prefer the director's cut moving that infamous Willow song sequence into the hour mark of the runtime, because otherwise things are a little too weird too early on, and it makes the gradual unveiling of the island's sinister behaviours just a little less surprising from my own perspective. I do tend to believe that this film's genius is derived from a stellar screenplay first. Anthony Shaffer, the guy who wrote Sleuth, the play and the film, and Hitchcock's Frenzy, just so we're all aware who we're dealing with, which was itself based off of a novel, Ritual, by David Pinner, which was published in 1967. As expertly directed as the film is, as beautifully performed and as superbly shot, Harry Waxman, who shot Brighton Rock, The Nanny with Betty Davis, and Twisted Nerve, as The Wicker Man is, I can only imagine reading this in the early 70s as a screenplay and thinking, let's make this yesterday. And it is even better than I would have imagined initially reading that script. It is also better than the Academy Award nominees for 1973. Well, that's not necessarily true. The Exorcist is one of the few horror films, or well, films, to compete with Wicker Man, and Cries and Whispers, normally considered a 1972 release, was a 73 film for America, and that's one of Bergman's best, so naturally it will be on a shortlist for best films ever made. Other great films of 1973, not necessarily superior to The Wicker Man, include Altman's The Long Goodbye, David Elphicke's Crystal Voyager, one of the great Australian films of all time. All of you check that out. The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, potentially the best film to feature Harryhausen VFX, along with 63's mighty classic Jason and the Argonauts. Seems the more I travel, from the film to gravel. Maybe to a marginal extent, Eastwood's shamelessly nihilistic exercise High Plains Drifter, the bleak sallow of Western films, I might make an attempt to argue, for better or for worse, however. Many calls Duvida one of the best films of world cinema from that decade, as is Yoshihiji Yoshida's Coup d'etat, one of my favourite directors who I'd love to discuss more of on this channel someday. Malik's Badlands, to some extent, anyway. I prefer the next three, but Badlands is pretty nice too, sure. I'm fond of the Hammer film, also featuring Christopher Lee, as you would imagine, The Satanic Rites of Dracula, a terrific and unjustly underrated film in the Hammer Dracula cycle for reasons that are so stupid they make me want to throw a human being through a sheet of glass and say, who cares if it's more of a satanic cult movie than a Dracula movie? It's better than most of them anyway, and if your brain wasn't so uselessly tiny, you would understand that also. And I'm fond of that amazing, I feel, Amicus anthology, Tales That Witness Madness, probably my favourite of that particular cycle overall. Fuck it. The best film ever made about Christianity. I mean, maybe not. Best genre film ever made about Christianity. What a respect, maybe not. What a respect this film has for Christianity, or at least a major distrust of pagans. How he is depicted as highly convicted, noble, and brave. The Christian faith is portrayed as emboldening, very ancient, and unequivocally sacred. I would imagine that, like The Exorcist, it is ultimately quite respectful to Christian viewers, as the Christian faith is portrayed as the positive force compared with the pagan creepos and the demonic entities from hell in Exorcist. The other best genre film ever made about Christianity. Well, or Russell's The Devils. There's so many great movies, it is hard to keep track of them sometimes, and in the horror genre alone, and in one bloody decade too. That's all I want to say about Wicker Man today. I'm cranky, so this write up isn't as good as they could be. But are they ever? Though I had an amazing time viewing this at a cinema on Friday night at the Dendy Joint in Newtown. Thanks, guys, for putting that on. Thanks to the cinema audience for not being annoying cunts, exceeding my really low expectations. Now I've got 3 more pieces to write. Load a shotgun, aim it at my foot, have it look like a graphic Tom Savini effect, but if I'm speaking truthfully and without fear in regard to my film opinions, who will? Other than a few commenters on to this channel that I rather like and appreciate. Wicker Man beautifully channeled the anxieties about the deteriorating Christendom of the English/British island/nation into this one relentlessly spooky feature here, and rarely has a cinema screening gone by so quickly. If you do not think that The Wicker Man is one of the very greatest films ever created, I like you just a little bit less as a person. Or I assume I do. I probably don't really, but I feel strongly tempted to. I can't lie about that.